All right. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to group 3, which is led by Kendall. Am I muted still?
No, you're not.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to group 3, which is led by Kendall. He's going to go over drafting reviews.
All
Ready,
right.
Kendall?
Thank you, groups 1 and 2. Good start. All right, make it challenging to follow, but we'll try. Whoa, so look at there. Wow, I'm bigger on my screen. Okay, let me share my screen here. Share screen 1. Let's share that. Boom, right there. All right, so our table in the engineering offsite got drafting reviews, and we'll introduce our team to start off with.
Mike Bellis,
Janet Rodriguez,
Carla Avila,
Pedro Martinez,
McDowell,
Romeo Adolfo,
Sherwin Bernal,
and Kendall Phillips. Oops, hang on, let's see here.
All right, so our Kaizen description, our initial statement last year at the offsite was current shop drawing review process does not function efficiently and effectively. But after a couple meetings at the beginning and trying to fill out the scope, the Kaizen scope sheet, we filled out our problems first, left the statement to the end. After the problems, we filled out our goals, and after having those complete, we reworded our statement to what it is now. It is completed shop drawings have many errors and poorly designed details.
obstacles. Some of the obstacles we encountered were the quality of reviewers' comments made it difficult to know what to do next. Some of the comments are vague and do not give a lot of description to the problem they have found or how to fix the problem. It was unclear who was responsible for providing the final direction to the draftsman. There was some confusion on what comments should be approved or denied. There is no defined standard on how that comment should look or the training of reviewers. Reviewers' comments might be in a different color. They may or may not have a text box around them. When snippets are added to the drawings, they aren't clouded and may blend in with the drawings. Quantity of the reviews that reviewers are being sent can be overwhelming. At times, the reviewers may have multiple drawings to review, and it may be difficult to get to all of them. Shop drawing revision Kaizen team was working on a similar idea, so we needed to avoid duplicating it.
All right, and the current progress we've made so far is we've defined the outcomes desired. We created guidelines for the comments to be clear and easy for the draftsman to understand. We've identified specific categories of questions for constructability review and listed on these on the wiki site under the 80% drawing review. And we've used 1951 Harbor Bay as a beta test to test out the new constructability review process.
Outcomes desired. So first, the definition of the ownership and clarify owner's role in answering comments on the drawing. So we, this one, I mean, it's the project manager that's going to be the owner of the shop drawing. Okay. Then have the next is have the shop drawings meet the shop drawing standards before review. So in this case, before sending out for review, this should be the review first for standards. And then all constructability comments to be clear and specific. So all the comments should be clear, like no comments like question mark or just a red mark, something like that. So it should be clear, and we will provide training for the reviewer for this one. And then next, keep a standard reviewer list current. Then next, the defined responsibility of a reviewer. So in this one, we think some putting some kind of a signature on the shop drawing for the reviewer, but this one is too much. We are still thinking about this. And then the last, verified reviewer participation.
All right, sorry. So we came up with some guidelines for leaving comments on the moving sessions to make them more helpful and clearer. The first one is to be nice. So don't leave a comment just saying you're wrong. You should explain why something is wrong and, you know, try to teach someone so that they don't make that same mistake again in the future. The second is, whenever possible, try to come up with a fix to a problem and not just point it out. Next is, don't put anything that doesn't pertain to the project, and don't just put question marks. If you don't understand why something is being done, ask a question to make it known that it's confusing, like why are we doing it this way and not that way? If you've dealt with something similarly previously, including a snippet to the previous solution would be really helpful. And if you do provide a snippet, clouding it would also be very helpful so that it's not accidentally moved or deleted. And then if you do also provide a snippet reference to another project, it would be super helpful if you could say, oh, this is from 1 off 552 from 1180 Main, just so the drafter can go reference that specific snippet that you provided.
Okay, so this is categories of questions for constructability review. As we mentioned before, we wanted to reduce what people are expected to review. So we broke down the categories. Broke down the categories of questions that are typically placed on the drawings and split them up amongst the reviewers. So most of these fit into the various jobs that we have. For example, we have the PCs listed here under fabrication and assembly. But some of them were done for other reasons. For example, we have the drafting managers under installation because we had so many people for fabrication and assembly that it was only the field superintendents looking at installation. So feel free to review anything that is outside of the categories listed here, but we are requesting that you review the category that your job is part of. And we also started a list of typical questions within each category. It's on the wiki site on the 80% review page. It's not complete. It's just an idea to get just a starting point to get ideas flowing.
We beta tested the available project for 80% review at a time, which is 1951 Harbor Bay, and found the following results. There are 45 standard reviewers. We don't know if everyone reviewed the drawings. Most comments follow the comment criteria, stating that what the issue was and what need to be done. The reviewers are a little unclear on exactly what they want or need to do. We haven't received feedback from PM to know if this helped. Not everything the reviewers are seeing were on the list of constructability review.
So what's next? We need to verify reviewers' participation by looking into the methods that's been created. And we're setting up reviewers training for each category, in which these categories will be discussed of its relevance and will make necessary changes and updates. And the Zoom training will be set on October 2, 2020 for reviewers, and another Zoom training will be set also on October 2, 2020 for PMs to discuss the process and the outcomes desired. And lastly, we'll develop PDCA process, which we will make use of the succeeding subject review and to add items of constructability that's been missed out along the process as they come.
Okay, and we're ready for questions and answers.
I think I'm first.
Go ahead, Katan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, most of the time I see means the documents are reviewed for all the details and the dimensions and all those things. But I never find like somebody is reviewing the drawings against the architectural or construction documents from GC. I hardly see that actually. So of course it is a main responsibility of the drafter. So I would like include in architectural section somebody put like a jump start only, but the drafter should also be like responsible for reviewing to go with all architectural drawings. My concern is, somebody has to like out of all in the review team, there must be some person responsible to go to check. To go with all construction document and check particularly the dimension points and other issues like the steels are the connection. We are like as per example, if we our anchoring supports means that the supports are we getting at the right place or not, or something like that.
Is there anybody in the review process that does that now, Kendall?
So in this review process, as we were overlapping with the team that we were just ahead of us a little bit, because they're going through and checking dimensionality, right, of the shop drawings against the architecturals, I'm guessing as well. And so we were thinking that's happening in the weekly drawing review meetings, is that they're making sure that that's matching the architecturals. And so in this review step, we weren't necessarily thinking that we were having to duplicate that, right? As we looked at our problem statement here, as we did all of our, going out and talking to each group and each study and what they review drawings for, we came up with really, it's that constructability review and making sure we're focused on that, thinking that the architectural review was taking place each week in those weekly meetings.
Yeah, on the shop drawing stamps, there's items with regards to that about checking checking against the architecturals, as far as I recall.
Do you remember
it is?
Do you remember whose responsibility that was to check that, Mike?
No, I don't.
Yeah, the stamps have it listed. So this Kaizen that Kendall was the lead of is similar in scope to what the one revision shop drawing Kaizen team, which was primarily the PMs led by Steve Larson, and then Jessica and I were part of that team as well, where we developed the stamps on who would be checking which items. Those would be pasted on the 80% review, and then each person's responsibility is actually highlighted on those stamps. That's the one that we introduced at the PM meeting 2 weeks ago, and actually we're doing the PM to the drafting team is coming up in on the Thursday training in a couple of weeks now as well.
But I'm just asking, do you remember, to Katan's point, do you remember who it was that was supposed to check dimensionally?
Move on for a second and I'll paste the stamp and I'll just look at it.
Okay, well, yeah, I just wanted to let him know, because I know we were handling it. I just want to make sure he knows who it is that's doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've got it here for Santana West. I can share my screen.
And also, and initially what we found out too is we went back to the 80% drawing review page is the project manager is the leader of the team, right? So as they're ensuring that all those the reviewers and the comments, and so, I've already talked to Steve Larson, our team talked to Steve, knowing like Bill said, the one shop drawing revision team, there's PMs in there and they're taking that ownership on that the responsibility coming out of this constructability review was something that there was going to be in there as well.
Yeah, but Mike, your chart you just showed, is that the PM then, the green? Is that what it is?
Sorry, yeah, that's it was blue and green, so drafting and PM, and it's a note says verify that all dimensions agree with the floor plans and sections.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Is that possible to have like a standard list which item we should have in a Bluebeam when we got the 80% review? Also, like Ketan said, if I see the most latest architectural drawing within that Bluebeam, I always look at both of them. You know, just making sure. But you know, sometimes I don't see the architecture drawing within the Bluebeam, or when I open it, it was super, you know, like super old one.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
Was there something else about you guys talking about making sure people reviewed the drawings, like the people that were on that list that were sent out to all the standard reviewers or something? I mean, how do we make sure that?
I kind of like the Kendall's, what he is doing right now, because he always put his stamp Kendall reviewed and then he put the date. So then we see he already finished, but he's the only one who does that right now. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know,
I like the
get
idea,
email,
like having this.
But
yeah.
How do we know? I mean, like, is there a process to not force, but to schedule that review by that person or that group?
Yeah, it's one of our goals is to look into that, right? It was still left for us to do, is to try to identify that. If there's a way in Bluebeam that we can track that, right? You know, you see the comments in Bluebeam when people leave comments, you can see, you know, you can see people that are maybe, you know, so again, it's trying to figure that out and make sure, okay, do we actually get a record when someone opens it, you know, and closes it, right? It shows people opening and closing, right? But doesn't necessarily show, you know, if they spent 2 minutes on it or an hour and a half, right? Or whatever it might be, right? So did they just open it to say they opened it, or, you know, so we're still working on that. But yeah, that was definitely one of our things we're trying to follow up on is, again, getting that participation, but a lot of it is in the training as well, right? So as we go through and do the training, right? And that was part of the expectations as well, is that, you know, I don't need Bob to spend 3 days looking at the elevations and the plans and making sure all the dimensions match or whatever. I need him to go straight, you know, what do I need Bob to look at, right? What do we need the PCs to look at? So that was, again, sort of the division of responsibilities in there to allow, say, okay, you know what, you don't have to spend, you know, that much time on that many drawing reviews, right? And hoping that that's going to increase the participation as well. But
I had a question. So you mentioned that the drawing should be up to standard before sending out for review. So how are you going to ensure that? Is there going to be a separate review just for standards? And then like and training? Because too, that's one of the things I check all the time, drafting standards, but my name's not on the list, but I'm on the standard reviewers. So, but I mean, I review for everything, but standards is a big one for me. But is that like a separate review then before it goes out for 80%, or how are you going to do that?
yeah, this is where we were running into some overlap with the team that Bill just mentioned. It's, you know, the one drawing, the one, I forget the name of it, but they're stamped, right? So every week they're doing that check, right? They're doing that as a progress, and they're stamped and they're going through, right? So that's, so when we say it's done before it gets to us, it's not like it's a whole separate review at the end. It's that weekly review and the progress they're getting each week. Did I say that correctly, Bill?
Yes, the PM's process with the drafting team incorporates the weekly review, and then it kind of culminates in that 80% review where every sheet has a stamp on it and everyone is listed on the things that they should be looking for.
So on weekly review set, we don't need, we are not putting the stamp. That is correct?
Yeah, the stamp is on the weekly set only on the first sheet of each category. And those, we will explain that in detail when we do our rollout to the drafting team as well.
Yeah, because I'm honestly, I'm telling you, the weekly review, hardly anybody is doing the weekly review. And sometimes it is very like a short time between like the 80% set and now the process means now we become more too much efficient. So it is very hard to like, see, if you see my first weekly, as for example, on Ardenwood, my first, because it was like a third or fourth building, my first set was almost like 80% curtain walls, right? And people does, yeah. So I'm giving an example actually, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it is like it doesn't make sense sometimes, or it makes sense, but I'm not sure how what is the like how weekly review is helpful, you know. And you know what, actually, because it is weekly, nobody is paying attention to review that.
So Kaizen will have to take that as a separate thing because it's kind of out of the scope of this Kaizen.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I think I'm writing notes here as we go, but like the weekly reviews need some look, you know what I mean? Because like you said, if that's not happening in the weekly, but we're assuming it is, then there's a gap that's going to happen. You know, this Kaizen's looking at that actual review set, but we got to look at that weekly process too. So I've got notes here for that. So.
Yeah, so that's somewhere where we were stuck at, as we saw the previous presentation, was working on quality as well. So it's like we tried to separate quality from constructability, and we said quality could be taken care of in the weekly set instead of waiting towards the 80% when it becomes such a big review. If we can take 50% of those quality things into the weekly, our 80% reviews, and then the 80% review meetings would be like half the time. So we wanted to let that go into the previous presentation group, and also Bill's, let them handle the quality, and our group only focus on constructability during the 80% review.
Mm-hmm.
So just for example, I was on the 9051 Harbor Bay, and our PM actually did a really good job. So every Monday we had weekly review meeting. So he set the day. So by end of Thursday, everybody should look at the old weekly drawing. And then Friday, he spent the time to take a look at the old question we put. And also Eddie is looking at the constructability things. I also do the stock drawing standard. So they all are, junior drafters can focus what they have to do every week. So setting a date on the weekly review also, that's kind of helped us a lot. Because otherwise, people put in a lot of questions and stuff like that. So we also separated the work. PM look at the coordination with the GC or our question. Eddie look at the construction stuff, and I do the standard. So then the junior drafter can get the clear directions from three of us. It worked pretty good. So.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. I think we're good. I think we're gonna move on to the next group. But good job, team 3. And Zach, you want to unmute everybody real quick?
Applause.
Guys.
Good job.
All right. Nice.
Good job. Muted everyone. So unmute yourself, Gabe.